let's get on to the next topic of. Actually, I'm gonna not really share too much information, and I'm gonna ask Dr. Rod a question. I'm gonna ask a question, talk about the topic, and then I'll pass it over to Dr. Rod. I'm gonna ask it to. Is this nepotism? Now, what is it? So Joe Biden, obviously, this week or last week, I think it was now, last week, but Hunter Biden was caught for tax evasion and a whole bunch of other things. Obviously, we know the length of crazy stuff that he's doing. There's all these inquiries into text messages and recordings and everything of Joe Biden and Hunter Biden, and it's crazy. But you've got the son of the President of the United States that has been given a plea deal, and obviously Joe turns around and says his response was, "I'm proud of him." Yeah, okay. But obviously he's his son. He wants to protect him. He wants the best for him. Wants to get him favors and things like that. Dr. Rod, is this nepotism?
No, probably not. Nepotism really occurs when somebody sets up, say, a family dynasty. And I don't think President Biden is trying to do that, but he certainly is trying to protect his son. And he may be trying to protect himself as well. We don't know that. We certainly don't know that yet. He claims to know nothing at all about his son's business dealings, despite the fact that there's mounting circumstantial evidence, at any rate, that would seem to suggest otherwise. But look, I think there's been a lot of commentary on this, of course. But one of the things that intrigues me is that he seems to have got off scot-free on a firearms charge that other people go to jail for.
Yep.
And interestingly enough, Joe Biden actually argued that people who offend in this way should go to jail. He's done that in the Congress. He's actually stood up and argued for it. He was in favour of tightening the law on these firearms offences. So it does seem very strange indeed that his son has really got off with a slap on the wrist. He won't be going to jail. There are virtually no consequences of this firearm offence, which really does mandate a jail sentence, a custodial sentence. The degree to which the President has managed to influence the Department of Justice, we don't know. But of course, there are committees in the lower house there in Congress that are looking into this and other things. And it seems that there are more and more whistleblowers who are pointing to there being some kind of political shenanigans going on here, and that Joe Biden's son is being protected, and possibly he's being protected so that Joe Biden himself doesn't have to answer a lot of very awkward questions about the way he conducted business on behalf of the family himself.
So we're talking about using or abusing power. There seems to be somewhat of an abuse of power here. And, because there's favoritism and things like that. And then we talk about, actually, you and I last week, we had a conversation about conflicts of interest and things like that, and some of the situations that we're in, and making sure, and I want to get into that in a little bit, your definitions of the thing. But I mean, there's a thing of, okay, let's talk about our situation. So you spoke last week with me about the difference between perceived, actual, like what were the difference?
Oh, potential, perceived, and actual conflict of interest. Yes, we did.
Explain those. Explain the difference between those for us.
Well, a potential conflict of interest is a conflict of interest that doesn't exist yet but might exist in the future depending on what happens.
Yep.
A perceived conflict of interest is a conflict of interest in the eyes of other people. And an actual conflict of interest is a conflict of interest which you have and you know you have. And, of course, other people can observe that as well.
So, let's talk about our situation briefly. Like, you're one of the directors. You're on my board. You're also on a board of another organisation. That organisation was going through some struggles. Our business, which you're a director of, provides those solutions to people, and you introduced me and our organisation. You introduced the two organisations together because you know that our organisation has the ability, we have the integrity, you know us intimately, you know it's right, and because you know them intimately, you know that it's the best solution for them. And so obviously during that, we made sure, like, you removed yourself from any voting on the decision, and what were some other things that you did to avoid a conflict of interest?
Oh, look, the most important thing was to declare it so everybody knew about it. And that would be a case of an actual conflict of interest, because the more that COS International thrives, the more my own church benefits. Yes. Because COS International supports my church and I'm the pastor of the church. So although there's no money going directly into my pocket, obviously my whole life revolves around Ignite Life Church here on the Gold Coast. And to the extent that COS International thrives, COS International supports the church. And so clearly there's a conflict of interest.
Yes.
And as a director, I've got a legal responsibility to make sure everybody on the board knows that that conflict exists. It's up to the board, by the way, to then decide how they're going to handle it. And the way in which we've handled it is to say I can be at board meetings when the project is being discussed, but I cannot vote. So I can even say something if I want to, but I cannot vote. So I can't use my position as a director to influence any decision that the board makes about, say, renewing the contract or extending the contract or anything like that. Because I've clearly got a conflict of interest. There's a direct line between COS International and Ignite Life Church, and I'm the pastor at Ignite Life Church. So that's an example of an actual conflict of interest.
And so the thing is everyone talks negatively about conflicts of interest or nepotism and all that sort of stuff where, someone employs someone or recruits someone that they know and stuff like that. And I know that it's spoken about negatively. Like you got someone like Joe Biden, he's protecting his son, he's opening up the door for opportunities for his son and stuff like that, and it's all looked on negatively. But I mean, we're doing it. Like, you open up the door for me and our organisation to benefit from this deal, but not because we're trying to do something untoward or under the table or anything. It's like, no, you know that I can deliver on the services. You can trust me, and so isn't it best to? What I'm trying to say is, I kind of get that a parent or a friend will try to help out a friend with a business deal or whatever. What's that line that's it should be okay for us to help friends out, and when we're going into business with people, wouldn't we prefer to go into business with someone that we know and like and trust and kind of already understand them, rather than bringing in a stranger into the deal and things like that? Like, how do we balance? Because we as leaders will be employing friends and family and things like that. How do we make sure that we're still making the best decision and also can't be done for nepotism or conflicts of interest?
Look, I don't have any objection whatsoever to businesses or churches, for that matter, employing people they know. I think there are some dangers in employing family, and we might talk about this a little later in our program, but I don't think that there should be a prohibition on it at all. The main issue there is, if you're appointing a son or daughter to succeed you as CEO of the business
Yes.
or as senior pastor in a church, you better make sure they're competent.
Yes.
In other words, you really still need to satisfy the criterion, are they the best person for the job? Now, sometimes, you can't go and check out everybody on the planet, so there have to be some parameters that you place on it. And when it's really important, for example, to preserve culture or to maintain trade secrets and so on, look, sometimes the best thing to do is to employ someone from your family or someone whom you've known and been friendly with for a long period of time. Look, I often think it is better to grow your people rather than draw them from outside the organisation. So I don't think there's an issue with that whatsoever. But getting back to the Biden family case, this appears to be go way, way, way beyond any kind of nepotism or looking out for your family. I don't know whether everybody watching this podcast is aware that Hunter Biden's lawyer has admitted that a WhatsApp exchange, which has become publicly available, actually took place. And that really looks as if there was a bit of extortion going on. And at least according to that WhatsApp exchange, President Joe Biden, he wasn't president at the time, of course. I think he was actually, I think he was actually a candidate. I don't think he was vice president at the time, but it appears as if he was in the room, so he was party to the conversation.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, we don't know the full truth there. We don't know whether Hunter Biden was bluffing, but $5 million plus flowed as a result of that transaction. Yeah. Now, the response really to that has been, listen, you can't blame Joe Biden for being supportive of his son, and you've got to remember that his son was a crack addict at the time, and that causes people to behave in ways that people wouldn't normally behave.
Yeah.
I happen to believe that doesn't mean you've got no responsibility.
Yes.
So, look, when we're talking about things like this, is very, very different to the kinds of things we've been discussing, like appointing a son or daughter to succeed you as the senior pastor of a church or CEO of a business. That's really quite different because there's nothing illegal about it. Look, if all of this was happening, if Hunter Biden was making representations to companies in the Ukraine and in China and using his father's position as leverage, then he was acting as an agent. He wasn't registered as an agent. So, look, it raises all kinds of issues that really have to be dealt with. Whether or not they're going to be dealt with, who knows? It may be that following the elections in November 2024, if the Republicans have reasonable majorities in both the Senate and in the lower house in the Congress there, and if we have a Republican president, then things might change. And I hope we don't stoop to third world standards and just try and jail everybody in the previous regime. I hope that doesn't happen. But I certainly hope there is an attempt to get the truth out of this. But I do think it's significant that Hunter Biden's lawyer has admitted, yes, that WhatsApp transcript is actual. Now the question is whether or not Joe Biden was actually in the room listening to the conversation at the time. It was
just a threat.
But this goes way, way, way beyond conflict of interest. It goes way beyond any discussions about nepotism. This is about betraying your country in order to make money for your family. Yeah. And if that's what's been going on, then that's very, very serious indeed. Much, much more serious than any kind of breach of conflict of interest.
Yeah, and I agree. I suppose the reason why I brought it up is this is kind of an extreme. And then I'm like, I know please, I'm not excusing any of the stuff that they've done. If it's true, it's terrible and all that sort of stuff. But I'm just, in theory, a parent or someone helping out a friend in business or someone in family in business, where's the line? Because I kind of went, well, we've been in that situation recently and we've navigated that and there is advantages to it, like you say, recruiting someone that's within your family or friends group, at least that culture's right, or especially passing on, like, so for example, passing on senior pastor of a church to your son or daughter, they've obviously spent years under your discipleship, like under your leadership, and they've seen you navigate the tough times, so obviously they've had so much training that there is an advantage to it. But like Dr. Rod said, he didn't say it directly, but it's okay to be able to support and to provide opportunities for our friends and family, but let's just make sure that they're most competent. Let's make sure that they are the ideal person for the role. Make sure, hey, remove yourself from the situation and get someone else to do the recruitment. Put them forward as a recommendation, and leave it to a third party or a board or a team to be able to recruit someone, a third party, external, that is able to make the decision and take all things into consideration to make sure there's no favoritism. Make sure you're declaring any conflicts of interest. I think that was a good point that Dr. Rob was saying is hey, it's okay to use the people you know and like and trust, and that's okay. But make sure we declare our position, make sure nothing's under the table, don't hide anything, keep everything out in the open so that we can continue to all grow and encourage and support each other together, but doing it with integrity.
But can I say, Craig, look, if it's a private company, say a family company, of course you're going to employ your family.
Yeah.
You'll pay the price if you're employing family members who are not competent. There's no doubt about that. I know a lot of family companies where the children go off to university and they get useful degrees that they can then apply back in their family business. And the ones that really succeed, they don't start off at the top in their family business. They start off somewhere near the bottom. Yes. So they learn the ropes as they go. And look, I applaud that. I mean, I think that's great. I think, in fact, we should have a lot more family companies that operate that way. Look, it's very common here in Australia, say for farming families to do this.
Yes.
When the children graduate from high school, they go off to university and they learn agricultural science, or they learn marketing or accounting or something like that. They get some experience by working, say, for a company in the big city, and then they come back to the farm and they apply their skills and their experience. And believe you me, a lot of agricultural businesses are benefiting from children who have gone away to study things like marketing and so on. And with blockchain technology and so on, you can establish your own brand, and people who buy your product can actually trace product right back to the paddock, where the cattle were grazing, or the paddock where the sheep from which your woolly jumper comes. Look, it's just brilliant. So I think we just have to be a bit careful that things are a little bit different on the political scene, where somebody could actually compromise the interests of a nation.
Yes.
In order to line their pocket and the pockets of family members. I think that's the big issue that we're observing in the case of the United States right now. But, when we're talking about a family company or something like that, I applaud families that set out to do this in life. But just know this, if you appoint a son or a daughter who doesn't know how to handle money or who hasn't acquired appropriate skills or experience, you're going to pay the price.
Yeah, that's true. And I actually, kind of going on, our ultimate theme of what I believe true leadership is discipleship. I think that, go back to my point of, if you've got children, usually those children have been discipled properly. Because they've lived with you, they've gone through the process, they've gone through the ups and downs. You've been able to mentor them, as long as you've done it properly, and as long as you haven't been an absentee parent and too busy focusing on the business and not focusing on mentoring your children. But I think there's then, like you talk about, there's a lot of benefit to children taking on a family business, and there is so much advantage. And it goes back to discipleship. How do we want to raise up the best leaders? Well, we need to be able to spend time. We need to allow them to spend time with us, allow them to grow. Like you said before, Dr. Rod, it's better to grow a leader than it is to bring one in. And so it's really important that when we are when we are looking at raising up leaders, and we as leaders, we're only as good as the leaders that we're raising up. And the best way to do that is through discipleship, spending time together, allowing them to see the ups and downs, doing life together, teaching them in the everyday moments, rather than trying to just give them a 13-week induction program. Yeah, we teach a 13-week induction program, but true discipleship. And okay, all right, shameless plug. I haven't done one yet this episode. Shameless plug. Down in the description, there is a link to our free leadership development program, which is all based on discipleship. Understanding true discipleship is the foundation of our free leadership development program. So check it out below, and we'll hopefully that will help you. Hey, you've just watched an excerpt from the On the Cube Leadership podcast. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If it challenged your leadership or inspired you in some way, put a comment below. And if you want to watch the full episode or more content like this, check out our channel. And hey, consider subscribing while you're there.